10 years ago, I believed I was living a dream life, earning a solid six-figure salary, married to a stunning woman, expecting our first child, with two brand-new cars in the driveway and a spotless house. Work was fulfilling, and my role gave me both pride and stability. My wife loved me, even as I worked on my imperfections, and I cherished her in return. People around us always complimented our relationship. We were the couple others admired, the ones everyone thought had it all figured out. Life kept improving, more promotions, a new luxurious home, and our beautiful twins entering the world. My wife thrived in her career as an optometrist, and we made time each year for amazing vacations. It truly felt like we had built something extraordinary. In early 2015, I bought her a Tesla as a birthday surprise. She hadn't had a new car since 2008, and I thought she deserved it. That day, we drove around just enjoying the tech and features together. It felt like a perfect gift, something to show how much I appreciated her. But strangely, everything started to shift after that. Over the following months, she became distant. Not just from me, but from our kids, especially our daughter, who was only 10. I noticed her trying to start conversations with her mother just to get a connection, and sometimes it worked, other times it didn't. It was in July 2016 when I first suspected something was seriously off. She told me she was still going to yoga, but I began checking the phone app that tracked our locations. She wasn't at her usual studio. Instead, I saw her phone parked outside a house in a more upscale part of town, consistently. She had been unusually short-tempered the day before, so I didn't question her directly that night. I just kept tracking. Again and again, she went to that same house during yoga time. Eventually, she returned to attending her actual yoga classes, but her behavior stayed cold and erratic. My family had noticed it too. I finally had enough. I asked her what was going on. She dodged my questions, especially when I brought up her location. Instead of an answer, she accused me of spying, of being controlling. I asked her plainly, "Are you seeing someone else?" She denied it. But over the next few weeks, it was clear she was no longer trying to hide her contempt for me. She was angry, defensive, bitter, almost like she wanted me to be the bad guy. When she finally admitted she had slept with someone else, I made the mistake of forgiving her. She cried, said she loved me and the kids, and I believed her. We tried marriage counseling. We had date nights again. And slowly, things seemed okay, good even. The version of her I missed started showing up again, and I felt safe enough to refocus on my kids and my work. But then came the San Diego trip. I had flown out to San Diego for business, a cross-country trip from the East Coast. But things didn't go as planned. My colleague got sick, and the client asked to postpone everything. We caught an early flight back. I didn't tell my wife I was returning that day. Maybe I thought it would be a fun surprise. Maybe I just didn't feel like calling. But I certainly wasn't prepared for what I'd walk into. I pulled into our driveway and noticed an unfamiliar SUV parked in the garage. A Ford, not one I recognized. My stomach dropped. I walked inside and headed to our bedroom, only to find the last thing any husband should ever see. Two men, in my bed, with my wife. They froze. My wife scrambled for words, trying to explain herself, but I didn't hear a single one. I turned and walked out of the room, numb. I went down to the basement, opened a bottle, and sat in silence with a drink in my hand. Eventually, I heard them leave. I came back upstairs and found her sitting alone, fully dressed, with a look of sadness that almost felt like pity. She tried to speak again. I raised a hand to stop her. I told her to leave. I told her this was no longer her home. She tried to bring the kids into it, asking what about them. Where would she go? What would happen next? I didn't answer. I was done. Not heartbroken for her. That part of me had been incinerated on the spot, but devastated for our children, for the family they were losing. That night, I packed a few of her things and promised I'd deliver the rest by week's end. I couldn't even look at her anymore. My trust was gone, and my patience had been used up years ago. I didn't sleep much that night. I watched over the kids, all three of them sleeping upstairs. The next morning, when they noticed she wasn't around, they asked questions. I didn't lie, but I didn't go into detail either. I just said Mom wouldn't be home for a while. I kept them home from school that day. We needed to be together. Nothing felt normal anymore. But despite everything, the betrayal, the humiliation, the wreckage, I felt something strange. Calm. Because I knew I'd done everything I could. I had fought to keep our family whole, and I wasn't the one who broke it. She did. And now, she would have to live with that. I would make sure of it. That was 2 months ago. Today, I'm writing this with a clearer mind, and a final court ruling. On July 13th, 2018, our civil case wrapped up. Everything was finalized. And yes, I won. After the chaos of finding her with two men in our bed, after years of emotional neglect and lies, I knew I couldn't just walk away quietly. I filed for divorce on May 21st. I was determined to fight for full custody, not out of spite, but because I honestly didn't trust her with our children anymore. My best friend, who happens to be an attorney, stepped in to help. At first, he offered to take the case pro bono after hearing what I'd been through. I couldn't let him do that, but his support meant everything. Together, we built a rock-solid case. Phone records, GPS data, texts, everything. The custody hearing was scheduled for July 12th, just after I returned from a vacation with the kids. It wasn't out of state, my lawyer advised against it, but it was a much-needed break. The kids laughed again, smiled. It gave me hope. In court, my 10-year-old daughter was called to answer a few questions. I'd asked that she be spared from testifying, but she insisted, calmly and clearly. She told the court that her mom had been acting paranoid and detached for over a year, and that she had gotten used to it. That line broke my heart. No child should ever have to get used to their parents' emotional absence. But what ultimately shifted the judge's decision was my ex's plan to move to Southern California. If she went, she would take the kids, uprooting them from their home, school, and friends. All three of them told the court, without hesitation, that they wanted to stay with me. Her lawyer tried to twist it, saying I had influenced their decision. But it was obvious, they weren't being coached. They were simply tired of chaos and wanted stability. The court listened. The final judgment granted me full custody. The kids can visit their mother when they choose, but no more than 14 days at a time without my consent. She was also banned from my property, our house in South Carolina, my land in Boulder, and all buildings tied to my business. Even my family filed requests to prevent her from coming near their homes. When the judge hit the gavel, I exhaled a breath I'd been holding for years. For the first time in a long while, I felt free. When I walked out of that courtroom, it was as if a massive weight had been lifted from my chest. For the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for the next betrayal or preparing for another excuse. I was just free. It was bittersweet, of course. I hadn't gone into marriage expecting to raise 3 kids on my own. I didn't plan to become the sole parent or to explain to my children why their mother wasn't around anymore. Not truly. But I accepted it. Because at least now, they'd be growing up in a house built on truth and consistency, not lies and shame. She tried to reach out a few times afterward. Not to apologize, no. That would have required some self-awareness. Instead, she played the victim. She asked to rebuild a co-parenting relationship. She wanted another chance to explain. But there was nothing left to explain. I wasn't interested in making peace with someone who had burned every bridge and then acted confused when there was no way back. I focused on the kids. I made their routines as smooth and predictable as possible. School drop-offs, weekend pancakes, family movie nights. We started new traditions, not to replace what we lost, but to create something better. One day, my daughter asked if Mom would ever live with us again. I paused. I didn't lie. I told her, gently but firmly, that sometimes people make choices they can't take back. That what matters now is what we choose, to stay close, to be honest, to be kind. Behind the scenes, my ex's world slowly started to unravel. Word got around. People talk, especially in tight-knit communities. Clients quietly stopped scheduling appointments at her practice. Parents at school events no longer greeted her with the same warmth. The fallout wasn't loud or dramatic. It was slow, cold, icy, and I didn't lift a finger. I didn't have to. Her actions were doing all the work. Now, I'm rebuilding, not just my family, but myself. I'm giving myself the time to breathe, to feel, to be something more than just the guy holding it all together. Therapy helps. So does writing things down like this. There's no perfect roadmap for recovery, but there is progress. And that's enough for now. Let me tell you about another mess I found myself in, one I never imagined I'd have to dig through. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and until recently, I thought I was going to be a dad. My girlfriend, 25, had been with me for almost 2 years. Things were good. Not perfect, but good enough that when she told me she was pregnant, I didn't hesitate. She said it was a surprise. Claimed she'd been on birth control. I was skeptical. Yeah, but I wanted a family someday, and I thought maybe this was just life happening on its own timeline. So I embraced it. She moved in, mostly at her urging. That should have been my first red flag. We started planning. What to do about work, how to set up the nursery, what our future would look like. She swore she could juggle it all, go back to work, raise a baby, and make it work. I bought into that dream. I made it to every prenatal appointment, rearranged my schedule, put other things on hold. This was my kid, right? But then one day, in the third trimester, she asked me to wait outside the room for part of the appointment. Said she needed to speak to the doctor privately first. I was instantly worried. Was there something wrong? Something she didn't want to say in front of me? She brushed it off. Said everything was fine. I let it go. But after that, she started guarding her phone like it was Fort Knox. New apps, Kik, Snapchat, that she hadn't used before. She claimed it was for work. Confidential conversations. My gut said otherwise, but I didn't want to be that guy who didn't trust his pregnant girlfriend. Then came the birth. The baby was beautiful. Perfect. I held him and felt something I'd never felt before. But that moment didn't last long. Suddenly, she was pushing hard for me to get on the birth certificate, almost frantically. Every hour, it seemed like she brought it up. I delayed. Something in me held back. That pressure was too much. We argued, and then she let it drop. Later that night, after I woke up and saw her tending to the baby, I noticed she'd left her phone unlocked. I shouldn't have done it, but I picked it up. What I saw shattered me. There were months of messages on Kik with another man. Updates about the pregnancy. Pictures of the baby. Talk about how she thought it was his. That was all I needed. I confronted her immediately. She cried, apologized, admitted it might be mine, or it might be this other guy's. But she hoped it was mine. That's when I packed a bag and left. A week later, the paternity test confirmed it. I wasn't the father. Getting the test results in black and white hurt more than I thought it would, even after everything. Knowing the baby wasn't mine turned my whole world upside down. I wasn't just walking away from a girlfriend. I was stepping out of a life I had started preparing for. A crib, a name, a future. Gone. She moved back in with her mom. That was fine by me. But I couldn't just leave it there. I needed answers, not for closure, but because something didn't sit right. The messages I saw had only usernames. No full names. No numbers. But I'm not stupid. I did my homework. It took some digital digging, but I traced the guy down. Her boss. Yeah, the same one she swore she barely interacted with outside work. The same guy who had a wife and 4 kids, middle and high school aged. Family man. Community events. Sunday cookouts. The works. And he had no clue. That changed quickly. I found his wife's Facebook profile. I messaged her everything. Screenshots, chat logs, the whole ugly truth. I figured she had a right to know who she was married to. As far as my ex, she didn't deny it. When I confronted her again, she admitted she'd been hiding the truth. Said she never thought it would come out. That she panicked. What she meant was she got caught. I'm bitter, yeah? Angry. Not just at her, at myself, too. For trusting so blindly. For getting invested so fast. This whole thing rewired how I look at relationships. How I look at people. But weirdly, I know I dodged a bullet. I almost spent the next 20 years raising a child that wasn't mine, with a woman who lied every step of the way. That pain hurts now, but it would have destroyed me later. So yeah, I'm hurt. But I'm also free. This next one's a mess, and I honestly still can't believe it's real. But it is, and it all started when my grandmother passed away just a few weeks ago. She lived in a small apartment that was attached to my mom's house. After she was diagnosed with a terminal illness, we had a lot of time to talk as a family. One of those talks included me moving into that apartment after she passed. It made sense. The space had modifications for someone with mobility issues, and I'm disabled myself. Everyone, including Grandma, thought it was a good fit. Fast forward to her passing, and we were still in that painful phase, sorting through memories, deciding what to do next. And that's when my sister showed her true colors. She's in her mid-30s and has always played the victim. The type of person who thinks the world owes her something just because she's miserable. And now she's on a whole new level of selfish. Turns out she's having an affair, and she wants her new boyfriend, yes, the one she's cheating with, to move into Grandma's place. Let that sink in. She wants to use my mom's property as a cover for sneaking around on her husband. And the worst part? She tried to justify it by saying I was taking too long to move in. Seriously? I found our grandmother not even a month ago. Cold. Lifeless. I'm still trying to process that moment. And now I'm supposed to just sweep everything out like her life didn't matter? Like that home wasn't hers for decades? My sister's timing, and her audacity, disgusted me. She actually tried to frame it like I was holding things up, like I didn't care. In reality, I was grieving. I still am. She even managed to weasel her way into the apartment one day and tried to grab whatever keepsakes she could. But I had hidden the important things. She walked out with a decorative bowl and nothing more. Petty? Maybe. But Grandma wouldn't have wanted her taking anything, and I knew it. She's since backed off, at least a little, but I can still see it in her eyes when she talks. She's waiting. Plotting. Too bad we've changed the locks. Installed security cameras. This is not happening. After everything my sister pulled, it became painfully obvious she hadn't changed. Not really. When our grandmother died, we thought maybe, it would shake her enough to act like a decent human being again. And for a few days, she fooled us. She showed up teary-eyed, talked about how much she missed Grandma, acted like she wanted to reconnect. But it was all an act. A setup. All she wanted was to get her a fair partner moved into that apartment, our late grandmother's apartment, and use Mom's house as cover. It's beyond gross. It's selfish, and it's the final straw. So my mom and I made a decision. Once I'm fully moved in, we're telling her husband everything. No more covering for her. No more protecting someone who never once thought about protecting anyone else. We're going to be honest, with him and with the kids. They deserve to know who she really is and what she's done. We talked about maybe doing it anonymously, but we decided against it. He deserves to hear the truth directly, not wonder who knew, not sit in silence wondering who betrayed him behind his back. He's been in the dark long enough. We're going to shine a light on it. In the meantime, we've started going through Grandma's belongings, a bittersweet process, but also healing. We've found old photos, keepsakes, little pieces of her life that remind us of who she was. I even found a box that belonged to our great-grandfather. Inside was his pocket watch and a locket with our great-grandmother's photo. Those are the things that matter. Not drama, not lies, not betrayal. My sister may hate us for what's coming, but she created this. She pushed and pushed until we had no choice but to draw a line. She's not a victim. She's not misunderstood. She's just someone who's made a string of selfish, destructive decisions. And this time, she's going to face the consequences. For once, we're not going to protect her from them. If this story hit you right in the feels or made you think twice about trust and loyalty, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to like the video. Your support helps us share more powerful stories like this one.